Chapter 16.
As you know from last night's reading assignment,
Dr. Roop said,
the ability to operate a ship, be it a short-range freighter, a mining vessel that never leaves a solar system, or a starship that tunnels across light years, is a vital skill in any interstellar culture. The shipboard simulation room is the most challenging of all your options for gaining experience points. It is difficult to learn the different functions, but if you apply yourself to this task, you will level up faster here than anywhere else.
The initiates, Dr. Roop, and Mrs. Price all stood in the lower level of our building. The lights were medium bright, and the halls were wide, like you might find in an underground facility where it's required that workers drive trams and wear hard hats. We stood outside a set of double doors, and Dr. Roop gestured towards them dramatically. I wanted him to open them so we could get to business. Besides the games, this was the one area where I hoped I might do well. Or maybe I'd do miserably. Best to prepare myself for humiliation. The flight simulators on the Dependable had been in an open area with multiple stations. Here there were a series of private suites, which Dr. Roop told us we would have to reserve in order to guarantee getting time. He brought us to one of the suites, which could accommodate up to 6 beings, though he said teams of 4 were the most common. He then talked everyone through the process of running a sim, explaining the most vital posts of a starship and how to assign each workstation to a particular post. Once we all had the basic hang of operations, he told us that we were going to proceed.
We have a tradition of pitting the different initiate species against one another for the first sim, though usually there are 4 groups,
he said, and I had the feeling he was working hard to keep his voice neutral.
It will be less of a challenge with only 3, but the basic rules will be the same.
You are all certainly competent, Mrs. Price said, but I have faith in my home planet.
Of course,
Dr. Roop continued.
Now, you'll have 15 minutes to assign tasks and prepare yourselves. You'll go to your separate suites, which the system will sync so that you're all in the same sim, and then you'll be dropped at random positions within an 800,000 square mile battlefield. All 3 ships will be identical, so there will be no tactical advantage to any one. It's a free-for-all sentience, and per Mrs. Price's suggestion, it's a winner-take-all scenario.
I think you will find that human beings do well under pressure,
Mrs. Price said.
Let me explain what this means,
Dr. Roop continued.
Sims involving operations are the only area in which you can agree to assign the experience points earned by all participants to the winning team or being. So you'll be playing for the whole pool. Only the team that destroys the last remaining enemy will gain experience.
He waited to see if there were any questions. When no one asked anything, he said,
Lest anyone be tempted to indulge in a dark matter missile frenzy, we are running the sim as though you can only have a single missile loaded into your bays. Once you launch it, you can order your virtual crew to load another, but it will be approximately 4 minutes between launches. The sim is meant to test your tactical thinking, not who is the quickest to fire.
So saying, he left the Ishi where they were, and led the teams of Rarls and humans to our own suites. Tamret and I had been back to normal since my apology the previous night, but I still wasn't happy to see Ardov talking quietly to her as they walked into their suite. I followed the other humans into ours. Mrs. Price glared at us as we entered. She evidently had some personal investment in our winning.
I'll be monitoring the battle in spectator mode on my data bracelet, she told us. Make me proud.
I was a little embarrassed to admit, even to myself, that I liked having the chance to prove my worth to her, to all of them. I hated how they'd been treating me, and I didn't need to be friends with any of them, but on some basic level, I wanted them to acknowledge that I brought something to our delegation. Maybe I wanted to believe that too. Maybe it was just the basic human need to belong to a group of similar beings. If I did well in the sim, I hoped it might turn things around. I wasn't about to blow it. The first thing that we had to do when we settled into our suite was determine who would take which tasks. Right now there were a bunch of generic-looking consoles with chairs in front of them, but I knew that once the sim activated, we wouldn't be able to switch posts.
Of course, I'll be captain,
Niana said.
I have the best tactical mind, and will certainly be wanting Zeke on weapons.
She offered me a pale imitation of her best smile.
Me son will handle both navigation and communications, and Charles, you'll take the helm. Any questions?
Mine was about who died and made her Mon Mothma, but the others seemed to accept her leadership, so I guessed that they had established some kind of authority within the trio. Nyana probably did have the best tactical mind, and she was giving me my props on weapons, so I kept my mouth shut. We took our positions, and when it was time, we logged onto the system, and our HUDs kicked in. Then we were on the ship.
Oh my goodness!
Nyana shouted.
This is amazing!
Our HUDs created the illusion that we were spread out across the bridge. Charles and me son were up at the front of the helm and navigation. I was offset by about 5 feet at weapons. Nyana was a good 10 feet behind us in the chair, and when she spoke, she even sounded like she was about 10 feet away.
Ah, I am very impressed with this technology,
said Charles from the helm position, holding out his arms and moving them around, seeing how they looked in the illusionary environment.
Okay, that's enough chatter,
Nyana snapped from the captain's chair, as though she were a seasoned veteran, and had not herself been squealing in wonder seconds before.
Me son, please scan for enemy vessels.
Me son worked the console for a while, then she grinned.
I see them, Nyana. That's Captain or Ma'am for the duration of the sim,
Nyana said. Me son sighed.
I have them, Captain.
It came out sounding like an insult.
On screen,
Nyana cried with a little too much enthusiasm. Nothing happened. That's you, I told me son, keeping my voice quiet. She made a face like she'd eaten rotten cheese, and then found the correct sequence on her console. The forward screen switched perspectives, and we saw the Ishi and Rarl ships more or less circling each other, just out of range. Nyana told Charles to advance by 20,000 miles, and then we joined the dance. It was the thrill of battle, 3 armed predators poised to strike, coiled with deadly tension. Except nobody did anything. We moved around one another for half an hour. None of us wanted to commit to firing, since whichever 2 ships were in a firefight first would be handing a tactical advantage to the third.
We're going to be here forever,
me son groaned.
This is so boring. Mrs. Park, do you have somewhere more important to be?
Nyana snapped.
As a matter of fact, I do, Captain Blight,
me son said.
I could be earning experience points doing math or physics right now. Even the stupid game room would be better than moving in circles all day. Maybe you're right,
Nyana agreed, tapping the arm of her virtual captain's chair.
Can we tunnel out of normal space and pop in behind them, taking them by surprise?
Apparently she had not done last night's reading. When a ship first emerges from a tunnel, I explained, the shields are unstable for several seconds. They would have plenty of time to get a weapons lock and destroy us.
Right.
She turned away, but then looked back, smiling.
Me son, contact the Ishi vessel. Propose a temporary alliance. If they attack the Rarl ship, we'll join in.
Me son sent a text message, but we received in response over audio.
Oi, primates!
The Ishi captain called to us cheerfully.
Steve here. Done with all this mucking about, are we? How did a random become captain?
Nyana demanded.
We drew lots for it, didn't we? That's the Ishi way. And we like your proposal. Lead on, we'll back you up.
Once we broke off communications, Nyana had me son contact the Rarl ship and make the same proposal. No surprise, Ardov was captaining, and his response was much like Steve's. Lead and they would follow.
If we can get them to start firing on each other, and turn their backs to us, we might be able to take them both out at once,
Nyana said. It was an okay plan, I thought. It depended on the other teams being a bit dense, though, and neither of them was going to go willingly into a trap. We need to show good faith, I said. Otherwise, they'll never make themselves vulnerable to us. Nyana rubbed her chin in a performance of deep thought.
Helm, bring us closer to the Ishi ship. As soon as we're in weapons range, Zeke, open fire, but only a few shots, and don't let too many of them hit. Once the Rarls engage, we move to a position behind the Rarl vessel, catching them in the middle. As soon as the Rarl ship is beyond saving, we'll fire our dark matter missile. No doubt your friend Steve will think we mean to finish the Rarls, but the missile will be for the ship. With a little luck, we'll take them both at once.
Why target the Rarl ship first? I asked.
I don't think that I should have my orders questioned on the bridge,
Nyana said evenly.
Give it me a break,
said me son.
Just answer his question. Very well, I'll show you that courtesy.
Diana gestured towards the screen, where the Rarl ship was currently visible.
I suspect Ardov is a more formidable adversary. I'd rather not have to face him, whereas your lizard friend, no offense, is a buffoon. If the Ishi ship should survive the initial assault, then that's the better of the two options.
I knew she was underestimating Steve, but I didn't say so. Besides, I'd rather have the shame of first defeat go to Ardov than Captain Steve. We signaled Steve again. We'll launch a few PPB bursts at you to lull Ardov into a false sense of security.
I get you,
Steve said. I could tell he was grinning.
And we'll return fire. For the sake of realism, you understand. Not too much realism,
Diana warned him.
Nah, just the right amount, love.
We informed Ardov of our plan to attack Steve and then moved in. I opened fire with PPBs and then Ardov fired as well. Per Diana's order, Charles eased us back amid shots from Steve's ship, but we didn't return fire. Once Steve started in on our mutual enemy, I directed all of my fire at the Rarl ship. Ardov was new to all this and didn't know how to evade. In fact, he was holding the ship at a relative stop, like a playground bully refusing to budge, and though the movement of our ship made targeting tricky, it was nowhere near as hard as hitting a ship engaging in evasive maneuvers. Even better for us, Ardov was positioned to fire on Steve, and he couldn't take us on without making himself vulnerable to the Ishi, so just like that, the Rarl ship was sandwiched between two enemies fighting to stay alive. Ardov must have realized his mistake, and he attempted to back away from us, but both ships matched course and velocity, so there was nowhere for him to go. I kept locking and firing on his ship, thinking of it not as them, but as him. I was firing on Ardov, imagining that self-satisfied smirk falling away and his growing look of alarm. I was having a fine time.
The Rarl ship shields are starting to fail,
Misun reported. The data streaming across my own readings confirmed this. Ardov's ship had damage throughout its systems, most importantly in its shield generators. Its engines were barely functional, and it looked like it had multiple significant hull breaches.
Make ready, Mr. Reynolds,
Diana said.
As soon as those shields are down, hit the Ishi with a missile.
Just then my data bracelet chirped with a message from Steve.
Tell your captain to save a missile. We're watching you, mate.
I laughed. We might want to rethink the strategy. Steve just messaged me to tell me not to bother with the missile.
You're trading intelligence with an enemy?
She demanded. He sent me a friendly text. I didn't answer. Don't freak out on me.
Hold off on the missile for now.
I didn't have to see her face to know she was furious. She had had her plan, and now she couldn't use it.
Looks like the Rarl's shields are completely down,
Misun announced.
As soon as that ship goes, Diana said, the lizards are going to turn on us. Helm, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Weapons, see if you can bring yourself to fire on your alien friend.
Then the Rarl ship began to break apart, and there was a simulated flash of light. For a moment, I felt a wave of terror. It was too similar to what had happened to the Fatic ship, and I thought, oh no, Tamret, but I told myself it was just a sim. I forced the feeling of panic down. It was just an illusion. It was a game, but it was a realistic one. Maybe a little too realistic for someone who had been in actual combat. Diana pumped her fist in victory.
One down, one to go. Now fire PPBs at the Ishi before they can fire on us. Wait, what are they doing?
I was firing at Steve's ship, which was tricky business because he was firing at us and trying to avoid our fire, while we were firing at them and trying to avoid theirs. Getting any kind of lock was like trying to hit a frisbee with a slingshot, but I also noticed that Steve was moving in close, and moving fast.
Get us out of here,
Diana cried, sounding panicked, like she forgot in that instant that it was a sim. Wait, I called out, but Diana waved a dismissive hand at me and told Charles to accelerate. We began pulling away at top speed, and Steve was right behind us, firing all the while. We felt the low rumble of PPB fire, chipping away our shields. I returned fire, knowing it wouldn't do any good. Diana seemed to be noticing this as well. She looked at her readouts with concern.
You're hitting them, but the weapons aren't doing any damage.
That's why I told you to wait, I said, exasperated. The ion emissions from our engines are watering down our PPBs. Once we start running, we give Steve the advantage. Diana's face darkened. She seemed to understand that she'd made a mistake. 2 mistakes, really. She'd given a bad order, but then she had refused to listen when her crew was trying to advise her. She had just blown the sim for us. If Steve won, I could be happy for my friend, but there wasn't a silver lining for Diana, whose pride would be taking a serious beating. I looked around the bridge. All three of the other humans looked tense and worried. They wanted to win, and I knew we were in a position that made winning almost impossible. Mi-sun kept turning around, glancing at the captain, waiting for her to come up with a good idea to get us out of this. Diana gripped the arms of her captain's chair, a bead of sweat visible on her temple. This, I realized, was my big chance, to show them my worth. I had had more real space combat experience than any of them, and I'd proved I could handle the pressure. More than that, I had devised a new strategy to confound my enemies. What could I come up with now, in this sim, to beat Steve and prove to the other Earth delegates that I was worth having around? Then it came to me. Steve had the advantage because he was chasing us. So, why don't we take that advantage away? Maybe we could turn this around on him, I said. He's directly behind us, so let's come to a full stop and swing around to face him. He'll be at point-blank range, and he won't be ready for us. And if he tries to retreat, the weapons advantage will be ours.
Was that strategy in the reading?
Diana asked, not doing a convincing job of hiding her enthusiasm. I had just offered her a lifeline. No, I just thought of it, I told her. I can't promise it'll work. Turning that quickly is going to make targeting really hard for a few seconds, but with a little luck we'll take him out.
Let's try it.
She gave Charles a moment to enter the course, and when he was ready, she gave the order.
Now!
We decelerated rapidly while swinging around hard, and the combination felt like falling and spinning simultaneously. I tried to get a lock with my weapons console while also trying not to lose my lunch. The maneuver had seemed like a good idea in theory, but the sudden movement of our ship made achieving a lock difficult. More than that, the instant we slowed, Steve executed evasive maneuvers, which moved my efforts to lock weapons from challenging to near impossible. My hands just couldn't move that quick. Every time I tried to score a hit on his ship, he was already gone. He was moving too erratically, and the increased movement of our ship only made things worse. I can't get a lock, I growled in frustration.
Ishi's ship is bearing down on us,
Mi-sun reported. I looked up. He's going to ram us.
Change course,
Diana said. Charles shook his head.
There's no time.
He's going to overtake us.
Why would he want to do that?
Diana demanded. He's trying to force us to change the energy frequency of our shields, or to retreat, I told her, which will put us at an offensive disadvantage.
Why would we change our shield frequencies?
She demanded. It was in the reading, I told her, trying to stay patient. You don't use the same frequency for energy weapons and physical objects.
I fell asleep before I finished the assignment, she said indignantly, so I don't know if you're right or not.
I was busy trying to hit my target and was in no mood for long explanations. Just trust me, I said.
Like I trusted you about stopping?
She asked. Now it was my turn to blush. Okay, my plan hadn't worked out, but I'd been trying to fix her mistake. Diana, stop being stubborn. I know a few things about how these ships work.
What, from watching Star Trek?
She demanded. No, they don't work the way they do in Star Trek, I snapped, which you would know if you'd ever seen Star Trek. I know how they work here, in real life, Diana, and I want us to win. You need to listen to me. I thought she was going to demand I call her captain, but she let that pass.
I think you're wrong about the shields, and in any case, if he rams us, he'll be destroyed too. It will be a draw, and that gets him nothing. I say, call his bluff and meet him head on, but just before he gets within 300 miles, fire the dark matter missile, then fastest possible retreat.
That's a good call, I said, and it really was. Diana had made a mess of things, but she was smart, and she'd put what she knew to good use. 300 miles was the cutoff for safe deployment. She wanted to maximize our chances of destroying him, and give us the minimum room we needed to escape the damage of the blast.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds,
she said, and I turned around just in time to catch it. The big smile. I guess I knew what it took to get on her good side after all. Steve must have been anticipating the move, though, because just as he passed the 400-mile barrier, he both sped up and radically shifted his approach. I fired the missile, but I was rushed. I knew I was way off the instant I let it go, and the missile was lost. Charles had begun to retreat the instant I fired, but Nyana's plan had depended on the enemy being destroyed, and it wasn't. And it was gaining on us fast.
"You did that on purpose,"
Nyana shouted at me. "I'm doing the best with what I've got," I said. I set down the order to load another missile. If we were still alive in 4 minutes, we could weigh our options. Steve's ship was looming closer now. I kept firing the PPBs, but our shields weren't holding. He sent some cover fire in our direction, but it was mostly for show. We could hear the distant boom of impacts, but our shields absorbed them pretty easily.
"He'll change course," she muttered. "He has to." "He's firing his missile,"
Misan shouted.
"He's less than 200 miles away," Nyana protested. "He'll destroy his own ship."
"Evade!" I shouted at Charles, but he was waiting for the order from Nyana, which never came. Our visors filled with light, and our ship was destroyed. Steve had won for his team. When we emerged from the sim, the Ishi were all clapping and patting Steve on his shoulders and talking excitedly. The Rorals were looking about as glum as my teammates. "Nicely done, Captain," I told Steve.
"You practically handed it to him,"
Nyana said. Her jaw was set and her eyes were red, like she was trying not to cry. Nyana did not like to lose, and someone had to take the blame. In Nyana's world, it wasn't going to be her. My efforts to get on her good side had clearly not worked. I wanted all of them to like me, but I wasn't about to take the blame for this. "Oh, you think that I purposely missed hitting him?"
"I know you were trading messages. You said as much. And stopping and turning around was simply suicide."
"I was trying to save us from your mess," I snapped.
"Sorry, mate," Steve said. "Didn't mean to make you look bad. Just going for a laugh."
"No, it's not your fault," I told him. "If Nyana had listened to me, we probably could have won."
"So you want to blame me?" she asked. "Is this the thanks I get for being nice to you?"
Telling me you wish you didn't have to be a jerk doesn't count as being nice.
"Let's not be testy,"
said Mrs. Price, walking towards us with Dr. Roop. A 3-dimensional holographic projection of our combat field was hovering on her data bracelet.
"I had hoped to see Earth do better, but at least we held out until the end. No winner means no loser."
"Think again,"
said Anne, one of the Ishi females.
"We won." "No, you didn't,"
Nyana said.
"You were destroyed the same time we were." "Not true,"
Dr. Roop told her.
"The Ishi ship survived 3 microseconds longer than yours, and it was the cause of your destruction. The terms of the contest stipulated that the winner is the one who destroys the last remaining enemy. Even though he destroyed his own vessel, Steve's ship did meet those conditions."
"That's absurd," said Mrs. Price. "Scrap the game and start over. Let's have a real winner."
"I'm afraid not, Mrs. Price,"
Dr. Roop said calmly.
"But the initiates can come down here and compete any time they care to book suites. They can have as many rematches over the coming year as they want. I'm very impressed, Steve. Perhaps you and I could do some sims together another day."
"That'd be all right," Steve said, clearly pleased with himself.
"I see we've misjudged you,"
Jill, the other Ishi female, told Steve.
"From now on, you may consider yourself a full member of our team." "Cheers, love, but I don't think so."
Steve walked over to where I was standing.
"Next time, it'll be 4 teams of 3. The randoms against you lot. And we'll see who wins then."
Ardav was glowering at Tamret. "You mishandled the helm. Don't think that I'm going to forget that." Tamret met his gaze.
"I followed your orders exactly."
"If you followed my orders, we'd have won," Ardav said, taking a step towards Tamret. Dr. Roop now moved towards them.
"There's no harm done when everyone has learned something,"
he said, his voice friendly, as though he hadn't noticed any tension. Ardav's ears shot back and his fur seemed to puff. For a second, I thought he was going to turn on Dr. Roop. Instead, he gestured to Thiel and Sanjay, and the 3 of them walked off.